What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me, but I just got home off of an early morning flight, right? First thing through the door, I want to see my family. I love my family. You know, I'm a family man. I'm an advocate for families, right? Second thing, I got to get that hot shower because I got to throw the threads on. The threads make me feel like $1,000,000, but the third thing through my mind and all throughout the trip is that I gotta have that Tej pack. Tej makes my life uncomplicated. It's uncomplicated skincare for men. The first way that I started specifically was their level 1 system. It's a daily face wash to get rid of the dirt and grime on your skin. 2 times per week exfoliate and scrub to get rid of the dead skin cells. An AM moisturizer with SPF 20 because you should always be protecting your skin from the sun. And a PM moisturizer to help your skin stay hydrated and healthy throughout the night. Here's the thing. My favorite part about Tej Henley is that every box comes with an instruction card that tells you when to use each product, how much to use, and in what order. They really making the process of achieving and maintaining amazing skin for men uncomplicated. In addition to amazing skin, members of Tej Henley get tons of benefits, including at least 20% off the retail price, the ability to customize your box, exclusive monthly deals, you can pause and cancel at any time, and you get free shipping. And because Tej Henley is sponsoring today's video, they're offering my viewers an amazing deal, right? Just click the first link in the description and you get 30% off your first box, plus a free gift. It's an amazing deal. You got to get started today. You're not out here trying to look like a dusty. And if you travel as much as I do, which I'm sure most people don't, but you know me, I'm pushing my bag chasers in order to be in the top 5%, top 10%, top 1%. We got to make our lives uncomplicated, and Tej Henley is no better product. You got to look good. You got to smell good. And you can't be looking like a dusty. Make sure you get started today. Click the link in the description. Get that Tej pack. Feel the Tej, my friends. What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. It is Thursday, March 23rd, 2023, year of our Lord. Somehow, some way, whenever I'm live streaming from the crib, I always find myself 5, 6, 4, 7 minutes late. I wonder why. Care to say anything?
Why are you looking at me?
Care to say anything to the people?
It's not my fault.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is important for you not to work from home, to get out and about, get in the office, get into your office spaces, go out, have some fun, so on and so forth. Let me say this, and then we're going to start getting into the show because I want to check into the chat. I absolutely want to make sure that I'm kicking it with the people. I see the early super chats. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Let me break it down like this. I was talking to Rita. So Rita comes down to the office every once in a while, down to the studios where I record. I do the late night live streams. She often at times comes down during Friday nights or Saturday nights when I'm down there. And sometimes she comes down in the morning, like during the Millionaire Morning Show, like around the time that I'm live streaming, right? So she's in the background, milling around, filling up the snacks, making sure that the liquor is stocked up for the people and things like that. And ordering DoorDash, going to shop over at Gucci down in downtown Detroit because they recently opened up a store in downtown Detroit. And she does all of this stuff, right? And so what I usually do, is I park my Porsche, and y'all notice like 2 or 3 miles away from my office because I like to ride the Q line, I like to ride the bus, I like to walk, weather permitting, to be able to explore new things that's going on in the city. And I think that a lot of y'all need to become tourists in your own city, right? And so I go to drive the Porsche over, and she's like, would you like for me to come over and pick you up or whatever? And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. Here she go, messing up my routines. You know what I'm saying? So I drive my Porsche over there very much expecting, because the Porsche is electric, so I go and plug it up elsewhere. So I drive it over there very much expecting to walk to the Porsche now, since I'm getting a ride back from Rita because she's picking me up or whatever, so on and so forth. Bear with me for a minute, right? And so the whole time she talking junk, you mine. She always pulling on me, lifting up my shirt in the car and all of this other type of stuff in order to try to get some on the side of the road. It's like, I don't know where she got this from. Does she think we 18, 19 years old again or whatever? Neither here nor there, right? And so then when we get back to the office, or when we get back to the studio after the Millionaire Morning Show yesterday, she says, "Yes, I was looking at you yesterday when you was walking over to the car to plug up your car, and I'm just very thankful." I said, "What are you very thankful for?" Now she talking in this menacing voice, right? I said, "What?" You hear her laughing over there. I said, "What are you very thankful for?" Because you're all mine. I know you like to get out. I know you like to travel by yourself. I know you like to dabble in the streets and see things or whatever. But ultimately, you come home to me. You're all mine for forever. And I'm like, honestly, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I know I fight a lot of times. I do a lot of pushback. I know that I hold y'all accountable, and I know that I push women and push men to be the best versions of themselves online and stuff like that. But marriage is very, very blissful if you do it right and you do it healthy and you build together. I was looking at a woman on a lead attorney show last night because the lead attorney apparently do these live streams where he like just do Q&A and answer questions and stuff. And there was a woman up there and she was basically like, "Yo, I'm getting divorced. How can I get my husband out of the house ASAP or whatever?" And I sent the super chat and I was like, "Yo, ma'am, calm down. Go home. Stop trying to break up your family and get your life together. It's nothing out there for you." People that's single think that it's awesome being married. People that's married think that they missing something by being single. It's nothing that's out there for y'all, honestly. Yeah, you may make a mistake. Yeah, y'all might mess up the money. Yeah, whatever, so on and so forth. Y'all get into an argument that's not even relevant. 10 years from now, y'all not even gonna remember what y'all argued about that led to the divorce in the first place, and now y'all splitting up y'all resources, messing up your family, and you got to have a daughter and a son, and they got to be splitting Christmases and trying to figure out who house they gonna go over for the holidays or whatever, and so on and so forth, and they got to deal with that generational trauma that they gonna carry over into their kids forever. It's not worth it. You're not missing nothing. I'm gonna put it in the words of my grandmother. Ain't nothing out there but the devil. Trust me. I see it every single day with the different people that I coach and talk to. I'm out having conversations on a regular basis, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to have my office, my studio in downtown Detroit. I hear the horror stories. I let it play out right in front of me. I counsel different people on a regular basis. I'm telling you that there's nothing out there. I was talking to Rita last night, and she was talking about what she interested in her next car being, and so by default, she always goes with these mommy mobiles, right? And so the last time she was like, "Oh yeah, I want a Tesla, whatever, so on and so forth, the SUV." And I'm like, "Why do you want the SUV with the gold wing doors and all of this other type of stuff? The doors that raise up in the back because it looks sweet, and I can take my daughter back and forth to Taekwondo." I said, "Rita, my daughter came in yesterday and she got her license. She had got her graduated license. It's crazy to I had to take a picture of it because I'm like, yo, Leslie, you're old enough to drive. My daughter drives me around on a regular basis." And I said, "Rita, Leslie is driving. You don't need a soccer mom car anymore." I told her that. I said, "Think bigger. You know what I'm saying? Think exotic. You know what I'm saying? What do you want to drive? Like, what is your dream car?" "I'm so used to doing these soccer mommy mobiles and carting the kids around." I said, "They ain't even checking for you no more. You be riding in that car by yourself." You know what I'm saying? And so these are the type of conversations that you have once you get past a threshold of what's going on in these streets. I'm going to just be honest with you. One of the beautiful things about stepping back from these panels, because I'm not in duress. I don't have issues in my relationship. I don't have problems in my marriage. I don't have problems figuring out how to navigate around these modern women. That's not what my life is like, right? And so now that we having these conversations and we saying, "Yo, listen, what do you want to get? You want to get the new Aston Martin Vantage? You want to look at a Lamborghini? You want to look at a Ferrari? What kind of car do you want? What do you want to drive on a daily basis when you go in to get your hair done?" Because they don't be doing nothing on a regular basis. We getting their hair and their nails done and going shopping. What do you want to pull up in? What is your dream? If you don't have any kind of reservations whatsoever, what does that look like? I guess the point that I'm making to y'all is because I don't be knowing what I'm gonna say when I get on here. Rita just sitting here making me late, and so this is kind of inspired what it is that I'm talking about right now. I think I'm gonna have to bring the marriage series back, honestly. And I just literally came up with that right now. But I think I'm gonna do it differently. I think I'm gonna do it in person. One thing that people used to say to me on a regular basis is they would say, Anton, why are you giving people advice on how to be in a relationship and you've been married for 20 years? I think that qualifies me, but let me add a caveat in that too, right? These new marriage conversations, they will be in my studio in person. And I will be bringing people in to have conversations with to, maybe another couple. I might even let Rita come on the panel. I mean, not on come on the panel, but come in and have these conversations too. But these new conversations, I think that they're going to be grown folks only. This is only for people that's looking for solutions. It's only looking, for people that actually want to get advice or get insight and information on how it really is to be truly married, how you can overcome circumstances and situations, what I look for or what I would look for in a wife, where you need to find yourself, the ups and the downs, the trials and the tribulations, at what point in your marriage will it probably be the worst. And I'm just going to give you my own real life experience. See, one thing about me is that everything that I talk about my real life. And so this is for grown folks only. This is not for people that's trying to be in a poly situation. This is not for people that's looking to have a bunch of side hoes. These conversations is not going to be for people, that's looking to be in a relationship or common spouse or whatever the hell that shit is. This is for people. These conversations that I'm going to put together are going to be for people that are looking to have real grown folks solutions from people that really lived it and done it successfully. And even the people that I have come in and kick it with me, I won't have people that's just in a relationship coming in and kick it with me in my studio on this series. You're going to have to be in a healthy marriage, not in a healthy relationship, not together for a long time, not this is my baby mama and my baby daddy, not in a toxic situation. I am only going to be talking to people that's looking to get in a healthy marriage, not none of that other stuff. Either you're married or you're single. I don't have any gray area. I don't have any of that. So if that's something that you're interested in participating in as far as watching, I'll probably be doing it on Wednesday nights or something like that. Or I don't know, something. I got to figure that out. I'll figure out the logistics for it. And the only people that are invited to have that conversation to be able to give you a solution has to be successfully married. I don't want to talk to people that I'm gonna leave the toxic shit for y'all. I'm gonna leave the women for the streets for y'all. I'm gonna let y'all argue over, black women, white women, how you can't find a woman, what these women is doing, how they cheat on you, took half your shit. There's a space for you for that. I think that we need to start sectioning off different parts of content creation for people to be able to do what they do. I agree with you. I don't want to participate in certain conversations anymore. I'm not interested in joining panels talking about toxic shit. I think that there's a place for it. I think that it can be very healthy and productive. I just don't want to be a part of it. The only conversations that I want to talk about is money, solutions, getting to that bag, being successfully married, being in healthy relationships, having a great network, and running that checkup with people that's going in the direction that you're going in. So that's where I'm at with it. I'm not interested in talking about any of this dusty stuff no more. And I guess y'all can stay tuned to see what kind of car Rita get. I'm trying to get her to even come up with something. She can't even think of nothing outside of no mommy mobile. So let me read some of these super chats to get started with the show. Classy Beats, my dog, says, good morning, AD and Bag Chasers. Loving this new Showtime, brother. I love it too. I'm more invigorated. I got a lot of stuff going on that's actually making me feel better about. I'm just in a better mood and a better space. I feel so much greater. Says, loving this new Showtime. Shout out to the early rise chasers. Thank you, Classy, and I appreciate you, big dog, and great work over there on your channel. Demise Tuton says, hello, Anton, and I'm now a bag chaser. Just joined the Patreon last night. Hey, can we get a round of applause for all of the new bag chasers and Patreon members? My next webinar, I'm actually going to bring Pocket Watching with JT on for y'all to actually ask all of y'all questions to him also, so that he can really mine out and help you to understand from a certified professional's perspective of exactly what you need to do in order to be able to make sure that you're getting all of the benefits that come along with being a bag chaser. So that is coming very, very soon. And tonight, I'm dropping inside of the Patreon a location and the date of where we're going to do our next Patreon meetup. So make sure y'all stay tuned in for that. Give us a round of applause to all of the new bag chasers. Shout out to you. B Humbug says, what up, Unc? What up, big dog? How you feel, bro? Self-Made Forever says, you said there's nothing in Jacksonville, Florida. Now you saying become tourists in your own city, ready to hear the sermon today. I haven't really explored Jacksonville, Florida, so let me walk that back. I apologize to all of my Jacksonville, Florida friends. I will be making another trip over there to Jacksonville, Florida. I haven't explored it enough to actually say that, to make that assessment. So let me walk that back. Shout out to Self-Made Forever for holding me down. Self-Made Forever also says, would ever consider doing an interview with Andrew Tate, and both of y'all speak on the state of the future of manhood? Yeah, if he ever gets out of jail. I'm open to having a conversation with pretty much anybody. So, yeah, I'm with that. NC Biggs says, I wanted to know if I can change my life. If I can change my life, the rich life. I'm 39 and I'm in construction. I'm probably also going to get a private consultation as well. Yeah, I think you can absolutely change it. Bro, listen, think about it like this. You're 39 years old. You're not even at the halfway. You're probably not even at the halfway point. If you 39, and let's say you live to you 80, you got 40 years. You telling me you giving up now? Yo, when I was 26 years old, I was dead broke. I mean, I had moved back into my mother's basement. Listen, y'all need to stop trying to give up on yourself, thinking that it's funny because I actually got a video that I want to go over today based off of your experience as you're coming up in your 20s and your 30s and things like that. And so I want to go over that. But shout out to you. I think you absolutely can. If y'all guys need, if anybody needs to get in touch with me personally, even from a business perspective, sponsorships, whatever, email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com and I'm going to go through that. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and we're going to get it popping. So I got a lot of information that I want to go over today. Shout out to Love C. Love C says, I'll come to Detroit just to be in an audience. No, you're going to come to Detroit in order to be on the panel. You're going to come to Detroit to actually have the conversation. Grown folks conversation. This will not be for children. You know what I'm saying, Love C? We don't want to have no conversations talking about toxicity. We only want to talk about the solutions. Even if you're talking about the different things that you've been through, it has to be solutions-based. It has to be solutions-oriented. I'm not interested. I don't really care what the views are. I don't care what any of that is. I'm not interested in personally talking about the toxicity anymore. I did my time like a prisoner. I did my time. I think I participated in those conversations. I did my due as far as holding people accountable and things like that. And I think that it's time for me to move on. So shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to everybody that's tapped in. Yes, Bella, I got your email with the PDF and everything like that. And I'm working on something for you, Bella. So I'll be contacting you soon. All right. Let's get into the show because we got a lot to go over today. The first thing that I want to jump into, and I'm going to be reading super chats throughout the show. Make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. We appreciate Teach Henley. 30% off your first order plus a free gift. That link is in the description. But the first thing that I want to address is the rate hike. All right. So there's been a rate hike with the Fed, and that announcement came yesterday. And so I want to go over that with y'all, but I want to start by letting Jerome Powell go over exactly what was going on with the Fed. And I don't want to play the whole video, but I want to go over exactly what it is that he said as it relates to the rate hike, why they did it, what the state of the banking industry is. I want to get to the money first before we start to get into all of the other things, right? Because everything comes back to the money. Politics, relationships, rate hikes, home purchases, credit cards, building a business, home, like anything that you can think of, raising children, it all comes back to the money if you really understand how money works, right? And so I want to go over this video. I want to play it, and then I want to mine out and give you my thoughts and also give you some subsequent information, mine out and give you my thoughts as to what this means, if I think it's a good thing or a bad thing, and how you'll be affected as a consumer and as a family. All right, let's continue.
Good afternoon. Before discussing today's meeting, let me briefly address recent developments in the banking sector. In the past 2 weeks, serious difficulties at a small number of banks have emerged. History has shown that isolated banking problems, if left unaddressed, can undermine confidence in healthy banks and threaten the ability of the banking system as a whole to play its vital role in supporting the savings and credit needs of households and businesses.
The first thing that I see him doing is actually doing the thing that Biden should have did and actually telling you guys the truth on why it is that they went to save Silicon Valley Bank, why they wanted to reinstill confidence in the banking system, why it's important for you guys to really, really be focused on what's happening with fiat currency, why it's important for them to continue to fight inflation because it all goes hand in hand. Biden came in and gave you this fluff story and said, hey guys, listen, we're building more jobs and you're insured or whatever, so on and so forth. The reality is that it's really the confidence in the banking system that gives the United States its power and allows for consumers to continue to really, really focus on and feel comfortable enough to continue to put their money in the banks because that's the main way in which we generate revenue in the United States now. We don't make stuff, we just create wealth, right? It's magic. It's magic. But he's basically telling you, he said, listen, these isolated incidents and these banking failures that's become big news, right? Based off of the fact that we now have social media and news travels much faster, and you can't really control it as much as you want to, as they did yesteryear. Banks fail all the time. Hundreds of banks fail on a regular basis during every administration. The difference is your confidence in the banking system is largely going to determine how it is that we move forward as an economy. And so he's really addressing the core issue of what people are really concerned about as far as the banking industry, why it's important for them to save that, because when it becomes national news, it then shakes the confidence of the consumer. All right?
That is why, in response to these events, the Federal Reserve, working with the Treasury Department and the FDIC, took decisive actions to protect the U.S. economy and to strengthen public confidence in our banking system.
Protect the U.S. economy.
These actions demonstrate that all depositors' savings and the banking system are safe. With the support of the Treasury, the Federal Reserve Board created the Bank Term Funding Program to ensure that banks that hold safe and liquid assets can, if needed, borrow reserves against those assets at par. This program, along with our long-standing discount window, is effectively meeting the unusual funding needs that some banks have faced and makes clear that ample liquidity in the system is available. Our banking system is sound and resilient with strong capital and liquidity. We will continue to closely monitor conditions in the banking system and are prepared to use all of our tools as needed to keep it safe and sound. In addition, we are committed to learning the lessons from this episode and to work to prevent events like this from happening again. Turning to the broader economy.
Isn't it nicer when you can just get straight talk? It's much nicer when you can get straight talk. He just straight up told you. He said, listen, it's important that we ensure the safety and the confidence in the banking system because that's the way in which we generate revenue for the U.S. economy and how we keep this thing running, how we can continue to kick the can down the road because the national debt is continuing to go up. We're not going to stop printing money. We got to make sure that you guys are safe because it's a fragile system, and we're going to do everything that we can in order to ensure that your money is safe or you continue to have confidence in the banking system.
Economy and monetary policy. Inflation remains too high, and the labor market continues to be very tight. My colleagues and I understand the hardship that high inflation is causing, and we remain strongly committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal. Price stability is the responsibility of the Federal Reserve. Without price stability, the economy does not work for anyone. In particular, without price stability, we will not achieve a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. The U.S. economy slowed significantly last year, with real GDP rising at a below-trend pace of 0.9%. Consumer spending appears to have picked up this quarter, although some of that strength may reflect the effects of swings in the weather across the turn of the year. In contrast, activity in the housing sector remains weak, largely reflecting higher mortgage rates.
I'm going to be reading super chats throughout the show. Shout out to Solomon Cannon. I appreciate you for the super chat. What he's basically saying is that, listen, regardless of the pain that you guys are experiencing, regardless of the confidence that we have to continue to instill in you guys, regardless of how much more it's costing you in order to buy a home, regardless of how much it's costing you in order to use your credit card. The cost of money is going up. All right. Now, for those of you that has not been tuned into me for the last 2 years, 2+ years or so, the cost of money is basically the use of other people's monies, aka the bank, in order to continue to build your businesses, small business loans, buying homes, consumer spending, using credit cards, so on and so forth, right? Because it's supposed to be guaranteed against the Federal Reserve as far as the safety and insurance, which is one of the reasons why they have that FDIC, $250,000, even though they go far and beyond that if it shakes the consumer confidence, because they need you to continue to spend money. When you spend money, when you buy homes, when you use your credit cards, that's the thing that props up the U.S. economy, because there's lenders and then there's consumers, right? The lenders are the ones that make the most money when they responsibly lend. Now, how does banking failure happen? Because they have to generate revenue. They also have costs, right? They have employees, they have systems, they have different vendors, they have all of these different things that factor into it, but often at times they are gambling, right? And when you make a decision to invest in something specifically that don't pan out, then you have to liquidate against those assets in order to shore up your finances, because there may be a lot of people that's defaulting, and there may be what I like to call the perfect storm, right? And the perfect storm is everybody is losing money, so they want to pull their money out the bank. But while they're losing money, you losing money, and so you don't have the liquidity to actually be able to prop up what it is that you're supposed to have for these depositors. So just to crash course really quickly, the way banking works is you put your money in the bank then takes that money and it lends it out to other people, aka mortgages, aka credit cards, aka small business loans, and so on and so forth. So when you hear a lot of these HOTEP, pro-black, different people that are a part of the different administrations that say, we need to have more people lending over to black people, or we need to have more small business loans, or we need to do all of this, and we need to do all of that. Well, first they have to go back to the foundation of how banking works in the first place, right? In order to have a black bank, you also have to have depositors, which you then have to have investors, and then you then have to have a strong business case for being able to put that money out, because you got to make sure that you can liquidate whatever it is that that person has leveraged against that loan, in order to make sure that you're not going to be left with your pants hanging down as a business if they can't pay back that loan. So, for example, when they lend out for cars, the reason why they repossess your car is because they got to get the money back that they lent you in order to buy that car that the finance company is depending on every single month in order to get that interest. The bank makes the money off the interest. Okay, they make their money off the fees, the interest. That's how they generate revenue. Okay, so if you don't pay your car note, then they got to come and get your car so they can sell it and try to get the money back that they lent you. You can't just keep the car, and that's the end of the conversation. You don't own the car. You don't own a car. You don't own a house. You don't own nothing. As long as you are paying money into the banking system, or servicing the mortgage, or servicing the loan of that car, every day or every month when you get that banking statement, or you get that car note, right? You get your statement in the mail and you look at it. Most of y'all don't look at it. Y'all just put y'all stuff on auto pay. When you look at it and you look at how much is going to the principal, which is the actual car, how much is going to the interest, which is the bank, and then what other fees are you paying, such as taxes? That's how our system works. It's built on a house of cards and sand. And eventually, there has to always be a market correction, which is what you see in today, because money cannot stay cheap. Banks do not make money based off of lending it to you at very, 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 very small rates. They make it based off of how much money they can make in interest over a period of time, which they want to lend to the people that can properly pay, which is why credit, right? Y'all care so much about credit. They want to look at your credit score and all of your other factors, how long you've been working at your job, because then that gives them a better view of how your ability to be able to pay back the money, right? They want to lend to you. They want to make sure that you stay a consumer and a borrower, and they want to use the gamification of credit in order to substantiate whether or not you can actually pay that back, right? So it's important for them to make sure that this banking system is safe by instilling consumer confidence, because they want you to continue to spend money and they want you to continue to borrow money. They don't want you to just spend the money that you make on your job, pay your taxes, and then continue to go, because then they can't make no money off of you. They want you to go to work, be taxed, spend money on credit cards, and then be taxed that way. And then come back and then create a business so that they can tax you 10 times over in order to make sure that you say, eat the rich, because if you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you don't understand things from a business perspective, you're going to give half of your money away over into the federal government, which just continues to build their coffers. It's all one big circular pyramid scheme that the federal government uses in order to generate revenue so that they can give it to people that don't even care about themselves, and is going to finesse the system similar to how I taught y'all yesterday. All right, so let's continue.
Higher interest rates and slower output growth also appear to be weighing on business fixed investment. Committee participants generally expect subdued growth to continue. As shown in our summary of economic projections, the median projection for real GDP growth stands at just 0.4% this year and 1.2% next year, well below the median estimate of the longer run normal growth rate.
What's GDP for those people that's in the audience? What's GDP for the people that's in the audience?
And nearly all participants see the risks to GDP growth as weighted to the downside. Yet the labor market remains extremely tight. Job gains have picked up in recent months, with
Shout out to
employment
Zoltan
rising by
TV.
an average of
I'm going to be reading Super Chat shortly.
351,000 jobs per month over the last 3 months. The unemployment rate remained low in February at 3.6%. The labor force participation rate has edged up in recent months, and wage growth has shown some signs of easing. However, with job vacancies still very high, labor demand substantially exceeds the supply of available workers. FOMC participants expect supply and demand conditions in the labor market to come into better balance over time, easing upward pressures on wages and prices. The median unemployment rate projection in the S3.EP rises to 4.5% at the end of this year and 4.6% at the end of next year.
So what he can't tell you is that the quality of jobs, it's not just about whether or not, yes, gross domestic product now, or gross domestic production. Now, the question that you have to ask yourself is, what is gross domestic product and how is it affecting us specifically? Because he's talking about growth projections, right? So one thing that he's not going to tell you, or one thing that he can't really break out, is the information as far as what type of jobs are being created, right? Because unemployment could be low, or job creation or unemployment filings could be lower than it was last year. But at the same time, is it beating the rate of inflation as far as the amount of money that a person is making when they get another job? Because as he just told you, right, job vacancies still exist. But what type of jobs are vacant? Well, it's two different types of jobs that's usually vacant when we talk about the U.S. economy. There's high-end jobs that people make a lot of money on, but the overwhelming majority of people don't have the skill set in order to fill those jobs. So what happens is we have to outsource, right? I've worked at every single company that I've ever worked at has always outsourced work, not so that they can save money, but because they couldn't find the talent to be able to fill certain positions, which is why even with all of these tech layoffs, you don't see a gnashing of teeth or a uprising of people saying, I can't find a job, similar to what was happening in 2008. Because there were still so many different vacancies. It was just that everybody was going for the same particular job. So even those people that got laid off, remember that Asian woman that we were talking about that was on TikTok that was like, oh my God, I'm feeling so bad. I'm about to go over to Disney World and get a snow cone. I'm pretty sure that she found a job pretty quickly. Pretty sure. If you're a software engineer, cybersecurity, so on, all these other, there's always going to be a place for you in the economy, which is one of the reasons I tell y'all to get a foundation, a standard by which you can always lean back on. Because no matter what, I'm always going to be able to go and get that $2, $3, $4, $5, $600,000 position to be able to shore up my lifestyle. If everything just went crashing down and came down, I'm fine. I'm gonna be straight for the rest of my life, right? I have that shovel to always be able to maintain a lifestyle and maintain my standard of living, no matter what, right? The other segment of jobs that's available is very, very low end jobs, right? It's the warehouse workers, and it's not that these are bad jobs. I'm not dissing warehouse workers or blue collar workers and things like that. But what I am saying is that there will always be turnover. You will always be able to walk over into a Wendy's, Taco Bell, McDonald's, warehouse job, plant, whatever, so on and so forth, because now they're competing just to be able to shore up. So what they have to do is they have to like continue to introduce technology, automation, all of these different things in order to make sure that they keep things working. You can go over to the post office and get a job with USPS right now. You can go to the gas station, USPS. You can go to UPS. You can go to FedEx. You can go to any brick and mortar store. You can go to Amazon. You can go to any of these places to get a job right now. So unemployment is going to remain low, but the quality of jobs that's available, that's the thing that we start to have a conversation about.
Next year. Inflation remains well above.
Bruiser, you're not going Bruiser. Listen, Bruiser, I love the Lapeef show. I've done it for like the last 3+ years. But Bruiser, you got to understand, Bruiser, I have to work on the other things in the back. Hey, ain't this the greatest excuse ever? I got to work on the other things in the back end that generates more revenue for the platform. I need to be focusing on sponsorships. I need to be finding more people to put in a position of power. I have to give y'all if I'm on there, then that takes away another voice that can come up there and give some game that can probably speak more effectively to the different subjects that y'all talking about than I ever could. I'm not qualified anymore. I've aged out, Bruiser. I've aged out, Bruiser. I have to work on the other things. You know what I'm saying? Let's continue.
Our longer run goal of 2%. Over the 12 months ending in January,
Shout out to Bruiser.
total PCE prices rose 5.4%, excluding the volatile food and energy categories. Core PCE, excluding those, core PCE prices rose 4.7%.
Let's see if I can fast forward this a little bit.
Risks that high inflation poses to both sides of our mandate, and we are strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective.
So this is really what he's saying. Well, let me let a little bit more play, and then I'm gonna come back to it.
At today's meeting, the committee raised the target range for the federal funds rate by 1/4 percentage point, bringing the target range to 4.75% to 5%. And we are continuing the process of significantly reducing our securities holdings. Since our previous FOMC meeting, economic indicators have generally come in stronger than expected, demonstrating greater momentum in economic activity and inflation. We believe, however, that events in the banking system over the past 2 weeks are likely to result in tighter credit conditions for households and businesses, which would in turn affect economic outcomes. It is too soon to determine the extent of these effects, and therefore too soon to tell how monetary policy should respond. As a result, we no longer state that we anticipate that ongoing rate increases will be appropriate to quell inflation. Instead, we now anticipate that some additional policy firming may be appropriate. We will closely monitor incoming data and carefully assess the actual and expected effects of tighter credit conditions on economic activity, the labor market, and inflation.
All right, so here's a translation, ladies and gentlemen. What's really being communicated is that regardless of how bad things become, regardless of how difficult it is for people to be able to pay their bills, the tightening credit markets, the ability to be able to get a mortgage at a specific payment instead of buying the house that's appropriate for your budget. Because y'all got to remember, we still at historic lows when it comes to interest rates, especially on homes. Interest rates used to be above 20% on homes. I know that sounds wild. Interest rates used to be very, very high on homes until they wanted to incentivize more people to buy homes in order to spur the economy, and then we got addicted to cheap money. I remember interest rates, or my father telling me at one point it was interest rates at like 16% and stuff like that on homes. And regardless of what the current interest rate is based off of the rate hike, in which we only had 25 basis points, which basically means that interest rates rose about 0.25% in order to continue to fight inflation. And one thing that we can't, because you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place, all right? What's really being communicated by him specifically is that you can't have high inflation regardless of what's going on in the economy and the banking sector, okay? What I'm telling you, specifically, you directly, is that the worst thing that could possibly happen for the U.S. economy, even worse than job loss, even worse than modern women, even worse than you specifically losing your job at any particular sector, depending on where it is that you work at, even worse than you not being able to afford a home in your hometown because that's where you grew up, is for inflation to continue to remain at a rate that is above 2, 3, 4%. It is bad. All you're doing is ruining not only your own future, you're eroding the value of your own money, and you're ruining the future of your kids and your grandkids. If ideally you want rates to be below 1%, but they always target this 2% rate. And I actually did a show on that, so you guys can go back and watch the show where I talked about inflation, why they try to have this 2% number. In an ideal scenario, you want inflation to be around zero. You don't really want deflation because you can have a destabilization in the U.S. economy. You don't want to have mass inflation, in which last year and the year before we experienced that because they was giving out stimmy checks and printing money at a rate that was egregious because they were trying to prop up the economy based off of the pandemic and trying to come up out of that. So we have a mass manufactured gnashing and gnawing of teeth in which we're inflicting pain on consumers and the U.S. economy in order to drive down inflation, because there could quite possibly be nothing worse than both a combination of people losing their jobs and you have record high inflation. So you're going to have to pick one. You're going to have to pick a struggle, right? I'd rather be ugly than unfit. I'd rather be ugly than unfit, right? That's literally what he's saying. I'd rather be ugly than unfit. So the ugly part is they're going to have some problems and some trouble in the banking sector, and there's going to be some consumers that complain, and there's going to be some people that lose their jobs, and you're not going to have access to cheap money and so on and so forth. But he's saying that the U.S. economy needs to be fit. And he's saying that it's much easier to solve a problem when you have inflation under control, because it's the only tool that they have in the Fed's arsenal in order to make sure that they can control inflation within the economy. They can't say, yo, institutional investors can't buy up houses. There is no law for that. They can't say, well, we're forcing you to be able to hire workers. There is no law for that. But what they can do is they can say, listen, it's going to be much more expensive and you're going to have to be much more responsible, and you're going to have to tighten restrictions on who can and who can't get this cheap money. Because if you don't have the credit, and if you're largely dependent on credit in order to continue to maintain your lifestyle, you're going to have an issue. That's basically what they're saying. Here, let me give you another point of view, and then maybe you can better understand it from a C student's perspective. This is Larry Summers. If you don't know who Larry Summers is, I'll explain it to you in a minute. But let me get his perspective, because this will probably give you some more insight. And what I like to do is I like to compare and contrast different views from different networks in addition to the announcement, because it gives us more information to make an informed decision, all right? Hit a like for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel. I'm definitely going to be reading Super Chat shortly.
Let's discuss this and more with the former U.S. Treasury Secretary, Larry Summers. Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for joining us. Did the Fed get it right today with this quarter-point hike?
By the way, I do think that the Fed got it right. I do think that they have to continue to raise rates. There's nothing that they can do about it, and it's largely based off of issues that we experienced previously. But I do think that they have to continue to raise rates.
I think of the difficult choices there were, this was the right choice. If the Fed had stopped raising interest rates when it clearly had a plan to increase interest rates, I think the risk would have been that it was signaling panic and alarm.
Yep.
And if the Fed was that alarmed, the market and everyone else would be as well. So I think carrying through was the broadly right thing to do. That was what the market expected the Fed to do, and I think it was appropriate.
So basically what he's saying from a C student's perspective is it's a couple different reasons why this was the right reason, or this is the right move from the Fed in order to raise rates, right? You're always going to hear people complaining because they want cheap money, right? They don't care about you. They don't care about their future. They only care about what's happening right now. He's saying that A, it was necessary in order to continue to fight inflation, but then B, it was necessary to continue to instill confidence in the American consumer, because if they didn't raise rates, then that would have been a red flag, and that consumer confidence is waning, and that they had to instill more confidence in the U.S. banking system based off of everything that's going on. So it's almost like, listen, I'm not going to flinch just because I hear gunshots in the background, because then you're just going to show that I'm scared, right? Have y'all ever ran up when y'all was a little kid? You ever remember that your parents said, listen, if you run into a dog, don't run. Because the minute that you start running, then the dog is going to start chasing you. That's largely what's happening in the U.S. economy today. The minute that you signal weakness, it breaks consumer confidence. The market reacts, and then everybody else think that something else is up because you're trying to save the. Think about it. One of the reasons, two of the most recent in my lifetime major impacts in which we've seen rates basically go to nothing, right, was the 2008 crisis, because they had to make money easily available for people to continue to prop up the economy, right? That, and the pandemic. Everybody raced out to buy a house, which then made the housing market explode. Everybody refinanced in order to get a lower rate, right? People were buying houses sight unseen. They were buying homes at $100,000 and $200,000 over asking price with no inspection. Dummies, with no inspection, because rates was that low, which then caused housing inventory to basically shrink up to zero. The other side of it was in 2008, 2009, 2010. Nobody actually had a job to even be able to go and buy a house, so they had to make interest rates really, really cheap in order for businesses to continue to hire people, reinvest in the U.S. economy, build things back up, allow for people and entities to continue to build out a stronger foundation for where businesses can go back and open and things like that. And so basically, consumer confidence is just as important as what is happening in the economy, because the minute that the sharks smell blood, they're going to come out and bite you. That's basically what he's saying.
I think the Fed is right to be signaling enormous uncertainty going forward. I actually think there are two possible paths. One is that there's going to be some real durability in these banking problems and the economy is going to turn down. The other is that this will be weathered and very much contained. And what the Fed's going to need to do going forward is going to depend on which of those paths we end up on, which I don't think anybody can know. I think the Fed was right to signal enormous uncertainty. I probably would have allowed more room for concern about inflation and left the door a bit more open to multiple rate hikes, given the strength of the recent inflation data, than the Fed did in their statement. But it's a very close call, and I think what they did was entirely reasonable. A lot is going to depend upon how the regulatory authorities and the bank insurance authorities deal with the remaining bank problems out there and what happens in the banking system.
So basically what he's saying is that it's only two paths to go down, and both of them is going to hurt. It's only two paths to go down, and both of them is going to hurt. You got to tackle the problem head on. And with continuing to raise the rates, you have to tamp down inflation, which also instills confidence in the economy, because you're maintaining the same path in which you've already laid out that we needed to go down in order to fix what it is that we had as a problem in the first place. But the minute that you start wavering from that, you get off that path, it messes up consumers' confidence. We're going to have a market correction. All right. That's basically what this is all about. Everything and everyone has a false sense of security of what's going on in the economy right now. And what you're seeing right now is not the value of things continuing to go down. It's the value of things actually being what it was supposed to be in the first place. Housing was too expensive. People overpaid. They did it because they had cheap money, and so they looked at things based off of how much their payment was going to be, instead of looking at it based off of how much they were going to be given over in interest over into the bank. It's just like a person that get a 96-month loan on a car. Sounds crazy, don't it? I think that a 60-month payment on a car is crazy. To be paying for something that is depreciating over time and giving interest to the bank based off of paying it for 5 years is insane to me. I've never done that in my entire life. Never done that in my entire life, right? But to think that you can pay 96 months, you can literally get almost a house for at a 10-year mortgage for the same amount of time that you're paying for a car. And you can buy a car for $120,000, $130,000, $140,000, and you justify that by saying that, okay, well, my payment is only going to be X though, and I can afford it based off of Y, which is Y is the amount of money that you're bringing home after you pay your taxes. It's wild. It's wild that they're able to market this to you and get you guys to be able to buy into this. Somebody in the chat says, Anton don't believe nothing that Summers is saying. It's not that I don't believe him. It's that I've already made up in my mind what I think the problem is and what the path needs to be in order for us to continue to fix what's going on in the economy, and that he's just substantiating the same thing that I'm saying. So it's not that I believe him. It's that I think that his views and my views align, and that we're going to have to go down this difficult path in order to fix what's happening in the economy. You got to go through some pain in order to get to the profit. All right. So that's what my thoughts are. Let me read a few of these super chats to see where you guys are on these issues and these subjects specifically. Let me see what's happening in the chat. Solomon Cannon says, thank you for all the game in the last webinar. How much does the Millionaire Morning Show make a month? Solomon Cannon is asking me a question for those of you that are in the chat that's not a part of the Patreon. I did a webinar a couple nights ago in which I was basically showing every single thing, especially towards the end of the live stream. So it continues to ramp up and it gets better and better if you replay and you watch what it is that I dropped inside of the Patreon. And they were asking me different questions. And so in order to actually show them instead of, because I'm the type of person that says, listen, I'd rather show you than just tell you, because I can tell you, anybody can tell you anything. But I like to show the receipts. I show the receipts of what I make. I show the receipts of what my bank accounts look like. I show the receipts of my W-2s inside of the Patreon. But I also give them the game and I show them exactly how I structure my YouTube channels and how I make more money than other people that have way more subscribers than me, right? And so one question that I asked the people at the end of the live stream or the webinar a couple of days ago was I said, how much do you think that the Millionaire Morning Show specifically make? Because obviously I have a whole lot of or a bunch of different YouTube channels. And they was all guessing all around. And I said, maybe I'll share that on the next webinar or whatever, so on and so forth. So Solomon, I can't tell the people here on the, that's not a part of the Bag Chasers. I can only tell the people that's inside of the Patreon because you guys are my friends and I am very, very transparent in order to make sure that you guys are leveling up. So maybe I'll share that in the next webinar, Solomon. We'll see. We'll see. Zoltang TV says, waited 3 years but finally got the call. Blue Dial Sky Dweller on an oyster, walking out the AD with a $10,000 profit instantly. Congratulations, my friend. I appreciate you. Continue to support the platform with the Fireball. I don't even have a Sky Dweller yet. I'm still on the list for a Sky Dweller, so I'm waiting on mine too. But you got yours before mine, and shout out to you and your authorized dealer and the relationship that you got with them in order to be able to get that. Shout out to Free Wi-Fi, says housing is a problem, but the crisis is student loan debt. That will be the straw that breaks the back. I don't even want to think about it. Actually, Free Wi-Fi, I'm waiting for the Supreme Court to make a definitive decision before I start to tackle that, all right? Shout out to Quentin with the 10 ball, says appreciate the daily knowledge gains. Shout out to my dog, Quentin. I appreciate you too, big dog. Hey, did you get that wire, that money that I sent you, Quentin? Let me know if you got that money, big dog. Surshot87 says, happy Friday, Anton and the Bag Chasers. Likes up. I appreciate you, Surshot. Thank you for tapping in, big dog. Ronnie Robinson says, good morning, Mr. Anton. Aren't banks making money off of issuing a line of credit to a person that cannot afford that line of credit? Aren't lines of credit insured with an insurance policy? So let me tell you how banks make money, all right? Obviously, you already know that they make money off of issuing basically allowing you to borrow money to do whatever it is that you want to do. Whether it's a line of credit, you can do an unsecured loan, a secured loan. Obviously, most banks will want you to do a secured loan. A secured loan, the difference between an unsecured loan and a secured loan is basically that it means exactly what it says. Unsecured means they're giving you money hoping that you pay it back. A secured loan means that you have something that you can use as collateral in order to ensure that they feel more comfortable giving you the money. So, for example, you have a home equity line of credit. That means that you have a home and you have value in that home in which you can then secure that line of credit. If you put up collateral, property, anything like that, you take out another mortgage, so on and so forth, that is secured against the property, right? The problem is that what we have is, what's the word that I'm looking for? Subprime lending. That's the word that I'm looking for. Subprime lending means that they ran all of the numbers, and it's a combination of credit utilization, payment history, so on and so forth. And they realize that you may not be the ideal person that they want to lend money to, but they still going to lend money to you. And the way that they can justify it is that they're going to charge you higher interest rates. So it's going to cost you more to secure this loan in order to do whatever it is that you want to do. We often see it in the auto industry, right? They know that they know the numbers. They're using the data in order to make informed decisions. So they know that they have a limit of people or a threshold in which they want to, issue this subprime lending to, right? And you don't want to go past that threshold because they know that it's going to be a higher default rate, which means that there's more people that's not going to be able to pay their bills. And then they're going to have to go and get those repoed cars. But they don't want that. They want people to pay their bills. They want to give it to them at the best interest rate possible. And so they use that formula in order to do so. The problem then becomes when people get too greedy, these banks get too greedy, one person on one side get too greedy. Maybe they have high commissions. Maybe they're making a lot of money. And this is similar to what happened in 2008. They then start to lend money to people that they know can't pay it back. They know can't meet that expectation. They're charging them higher interest rates. They're getting high commissions off of it. And then as a result, you have what happened in 2008 in which they started doing ninja loans. No income, no credit. Yes, you're approved. You can have this house. They start doing these egregious balloon payments and all of this other type of stuff. And eventually, the house falls. The problem is that when you start getting so many defaults, and there's no way for you to actually collect on what it is that you put out there, then that's when the bank fails, or that's when the value of that bank significantly goes down because the amount of collateral and the amount of property or the amount of assets that they have is valued much less than what it is that they have on the books, and then the bank collapses and so on and so forth. So, these entities are operating egregiously. And banks fail on a regular basis. I've even seen these finance companies. I remember GMAC or GM Financial or whatever it used to be called. And then they renamed it and they started loaning back money again once they went through bankruptcy and things like that. They were giving out a bunch of bad loans to people that they know couldn't afford the cars. They were charging crazy interest rates, and then it was going from there. So Life of Devontae says, appreciate all the value. I listen while I'm doing schoolwork on the days I'm off work. Can you drop the sauce on how to grow on YouTube and the Patreon? If you look at the last two webinars, those are the foundations that I use in order to generate the most revenue on YouTube. If you want to talk about growth, I also talked about that in the last webinar, but I can go into that in deeper dive. I don't know if y'all want me to do a webinar for that, or if I don't know if y'all want me to actually just do a video and drop it in the Patreon. So let me know what y'all want to do. Make sure y'all tap into the Discord. The link to the Patreon is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Let me go ahead and continue into the show. Thank y'all for the super chats. I will be reading them throughout the show. Thank you to everybody that support the platform. We're going to continue to do the work. All right, so let's go into the startup game right now. I like to watch and listen to the CEOs, the CFOs, the CTOs, chief technology officers, and things like that for industries that I'm intimately familiar with to better understand exactly how they operate. And I think this is a really, really, really great video that popped up on my timeline when I was studying what was going on in the markets for me to share with you guys so you can better understand exactly what these businesses are doing, the differences between a growth company and a company that generates revenue or a company that makes revenue on one side, and they use that to be able to grow the other side that they think is going to be more profitable later on in the future. Ford Motor Company talked about losing billions and billions of dollars every year, and they project to lose billions more next year, but then they're justifying what it is that they're investing in because they think that this is the future. So I want to share this with you guys because I think that this will be very, very useful in our conversation. Right after we had the conversation about rate hikes, listen, ladies and gentlemen, we doing the work when it comes to the money today, all right? Let's continue.
John Lawler, CFO for Ford Motor Company, joining us today on a morning where you guys are reaffirming your guidance for 2023, but I think it's more what you guys are saying about the projections for the EV business, the reality of where you are in terms of how much money you're losing, where you're headed. Let's start first off with the EV business. You lost 2.1 billion, I should say, last year. You're going to lose about $3 billion this year. You hear the chatter. There are people who are saying, when are you going to make money on EVs?
Now, before we get into this, the company itself didn't lose $2 billion. Their sales may be in the hundreds of billions, right? But what companies usually do, and again, I like to break this down from a C student's perspective so y'all don't get caught up in the mumbo jumbo. What companies do is they break out different segments of the business to better give analysts a view of how the company is performing. So let's just say, for example, a company makes $5 billion in the quarter, right? Technology companies make an egregious amount more. Meta is still, it could be profitable, but their profits may not be as high as it was last year. And so analysts get concerned and they start downgrading the stock, and that means that the value of the stock goes down or whatever like that. Let's just use a round number. Let's use 10 billion. Let's say Ford Motor Company made $10 billion last year, which is around a decent amount of what an auto manufacturing company could or couldn't make, right? Toyota, Ford Motor Company, General Motors, all of that, right? Let's say they make $10 billion last year, but then let's say that they start to break out different segments and they say, listen, the F Series, which is basically its own money printing machine, the F Series, which is a series of trucks that Ford make, is literally the best-selling car or best-selling vehicle in America for like the last 50 years or some shit like that. The F Series made $12 billion in profit, right? And internal combustion engine, or ICE vehicles is what they call them, made $1 billion in profit, separate from the F Series, right? But then the EVs, this segment of the business in which we have the Ford Mach-E, now we have the F-150 Lightning, right, which is all electric. We're introducing the new Ford Explorer electric. We're breaking out all of these different electric vehicles that eventually is going to replace ICE vehicles because we see the writing on the wall, and so we have to make a lot of investment. We got to build factories. We got to deal with recalls. We got to deal with quality issues. We got to, put together the batteries in order to be able to source the materials and the cost of being able to manufacture these vehicles. We're not running at a profit, right? So you can lose $2 to $3 billion on this segment of the business, but then you would start to ask yourself, well, how can they justify the cost of it, right? If you know and you actually understand Tesla's growth into what it is that they are now, Tesla for years was losing money, and their stock continued to go up because the analysts projected that they will be wildly profitable, in which they are killing everything and everyone right now when it comes to profitability and being able to scale up their business. The analysts predicted that they would be wildly profitable in the future, and that there was more than just a car manufacturing company. They're a technology company, right? They're making money off of services. When we we got autopilot on Rita's car, and it costs us this much, and they do over-the-air updates, and then you can upgrade the range in the particular car. If you upgrade mid-cycle, because they built every single car the same, they just unlock it from a software and software technology perspective, as far as allowing you to be able to have this feature and that feature and to be able to have heated seats or whatever like that, right? The technology company allows for them to look at the business much differently than you look at it just from a car manufacturing perspective. A car manufacturer has this parts and they have this many moving parts, whereas Tesla is simplifying the process, and they say, listen, We can limit having an additional 4,000 parts going into the car by not only becoming an EV, but also having a mass stamp in which we stamp out the entire frame of the car instead of piecing it together and having different suppliers send us in here. We have less workers, we have an easier manufacturing process, we can improve the quality of the vehicle, so on and so forth. So I'm giving it to you and I'm trying to help you understand and segment it out to help you to understand exactly how businesses break out. Alphabet could say, listen, AdSense on Google as a whole make this, and then our cloud systems make this, and then YouTube, I'm breaking that out separately and it makes this. Apple will say, well, the iPhone makes this and the iMac make this, and then Apple services, which include, they may break it all out and say, listen, Apple services is Apple Arcade, Apple Fitness Plus. What is the insurance that you get on your car? Apple Care, right? That is a growing segment, and that's growing by 50%. And we're going to be much, much more profitable. So we're going to put more money into that. But Apple TV may not be making as much money because they invested so much money in order to build out a content library, right? So when they having these conversations, they're breaking out different segments to say, listen, the EV business, we may be profitable as a company or we may be breaking even as a company, but that's because it's being shored up by this business over here. And then the EV business specifically, while we're growing it, while we're trying to navigate over, from ICE internal combustion engines over into the EV business, this company, this segment of the company is killing us. It is a $2 billion a year loss, right? And so we're running this as a startup. We're growing this segment of the business in order to be able to sustain us into the future and grow us into the future. And so this is what they're breaking out in this particular segment. Sorry for being long-winded, but I got to break it down for you because when you look at these quarterly or annual reports or you see these CTOs and CFOs and the CEOs come on here and they have these conversations and talking points, I don't want you to get lost in the sauce. I want you to understand what they're communicating over to you instead of just saying, oh, okay, I get it, or Ford made this amount of money. You need to be able to segment it out and break it out in order to understand, hey, is this a sustainable company? Is this a company that I want to invest in into the future? And do I truly understand what they're communicating to me in order to make an informed decision as to whether or not this is a good play inside of my portfolio? So I'm going to go ahead and let this play.
Right. Well, it's a startup buried within Ford Motor Company. And that's why we like our plan here to segment the business around three distinct customer groups. EV being one of those, our iconic ICE vehicles, and then, of course, our commercial customers. So when
as I said,
you look at the path for our EVs, we are losing money now, but we're a startup, we're scaling, we're developing the products, and we will share later today a bridge that shows how we're going to bring the profitability of our EV business up to that 8% EBIT margin.
Now look at this, This is perfect, right? Now that I gave you the foundation as to what we're looking at, now look at what we're talking about. Ford Blue, which is their internal combustion engines, that is every vehicle that they sell that has an engine that takes gas, okay? Ford Blue made a $7 billion profit. That is what's carrying the company, right? It is the part of the company that's making the most money. F-Series, Ford Fusions, all of that stuff, right? $7 billion profit, okay? Ford Pro is the commercial, the Ford Transit, for them to be able to sell these, even if you want to break it out into the rental companies and all of this other type of stuff, right? Ford Commercial made $6 billion. So it is a profitable company, right? A $13 billion profit when you combine ICE and commercial, right? So the question then you want to ask, well, why are they even getting into the EV business anyway? Well, it's the same reason why the oil companies are getting into the sustainable energy business, right? They understand that long term it's going to be writing on the wall. The companies that didn't use their profits in order to grow other segments of the business, right? You wouldn't have YouTube if Google would have just said, listen, we just want to continue to be Google. YouTube was a startup that Google then imported into their portfolio or made it a part of their company in order to continue. Waze is another company that Google swallowed up. Instagram is another company that Facebook at the time bought into, which wound up being an incredibly profitable part of the business. Now, there's other businesses and other segments that they buy that wind up dissolving, not being so profitable, but they have to take calculated risks in order to look at what the long-term projections of the company is going to be. Because if internal combustion engines are being phased out in California, and there's a limit on the amount of tolerance as far as ICE vehicles, then you have to have that startup because you want to start projecting what it is that you're going to do in the future. That's where you got Amazon Web Services. That's where you got Microsoft Azure, right? And so they're saying that, listen, Ford ICE, Ford Commercial, those make $13 billion. We willing to take a $3 billion loss in order to grow this EV business because that's the future, right? And so you may have a profit of somewhere between $9 and $11 billion when you have that $3 billion drag on the business that's not profitable yet, okay? Let's continue.
That we committed to by 2026.
You now getting there, there are more than a few skeptics who are saying, I don't buy it. I don't think that the cost of batteries are going to come down as much as they say they're going to come down. I don't think that they're going to be able to get the efficiencies that they're planning on. How do you counter that? Especially coming off of what you came off of with the fourth quarter, where you surprised everybody with higher costs.
Right. Well, we have an incredible team working on our second and third generations of EV vehicles. And these folks have built profitable EVs in the past. So they know the game plan here. It's not just about the battery costs. It's about some simple, efficient designs of the vehicle. We are obsessed with taking the energy efficiency of the vehicle up, which allows us to put a smaller battery in the vehicle, lowers our costs, and allows us on that path towards 8%.
Coming off the fourth quarter, let's be honest, it was a mess. You surprised a lot of people by saying, look, we left, a couple $1 billion out there that we shouldn't have left out there. And it raises the question, look, manufacturing is what you should be known for. And yet you're still talking about complexities. You're still talking.
Now, a couple different companies that I think are incredible is Kia and Hyundai. If you look at market share, this is market share for EV vehicles. Now, a lot of people don't realize that when you start to break out these numbers and then you start to better understand exactly what market share means, you'll be surprised at the growth of EV vehicles and why they're so gung-ho on investing and possibly losing money in order to grow their EV business. So think about it like this. Of all of the tens of millions of vehicles and hundreds of millions of vehicles of sales that's happening across the world and including in the United States, the EV business only accounts for, and is growing rapidly, about 7%. 93% of all vehicles that are sold today are gas vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles. 7% of all vehicles that are sold in the United States are EVs and growing. Just a few years ago, it was 1 to 2%. Now it's at 7%. And as you continue to see the possibilities, now you start to see why they're so interested in possibly losing money in order to make sure that they grow in these businesses. So it's almost like they got to have a balancing act now. How do you continue to make money on this while growing this segment of the business, knowing that this segment of the business is going to go away eventually? Tesla owns the equivalent of about 65% of the EV market right now. Ford is in a distant number 2. But remember, that's only 65% of all the 7% of the vehicles that's being sold as EVs, right? And so the possibilities are endless. Kia Hyundai owns 7.1%, and then Volkswagen is another 5.4%, all right?
Talking about, we've got costs in here that we're having trouble wringing out of the organization. Shouldn't that be a strength of Ford, not a weakness?
Well, what's really happening for us is our push into the new businesses, EVs, that's going really well. We're on track. We're pleased with that. We do have issues in our industrial platform. We're working through those. We're focused on quality. We're focused on our cost, and we're driving that out. We know what the game plan is to fix those issues. We're on it. It's the #1 priority for our leadership team. And what you will see as we go through this year and as we go over the next couple of years, you'll start to see that come through. And it's the segmentation of the business into those 3 segments where you're really really start to see that clearly come through, and it will unfold differently in each, and that's important because our blue business, where we have our iconic ICE vehicles, you'll see costs coming down, and we'll invest in our growth businesses of the pro business for commercial and in EVs. But one point there, Phil, is that ICE business for the next couple of years in Ford Blue, that's a growth business too.
It's a growth.
So one of the things that y'all gotta understand is why is it, y'all want to say, well, why is this guy getting so tripped up on his words? Because he's not an engineer. He's a CFO, right? Which means that he's a bean counter. Bean counters focus on the bottom line. They focus on the numbers. They focus on the profitability. Engineers focus on solving problems and creating things, right? And so right now, he's trying to use talking points in order to try to fill in the gaps from a financial perspective of the questions that's being answered or being asked of him on Squawk Box by the host. But the reality is that he's right, and that there is an importance of you continuing to grow both segments of the business while building out what you think is going to be the most important part of the business long term. One thing that I do think that Ford needs to do a better job at is allowing for subscription services to also be a part of their profitability, not just selling the vehicles themselves. When you add on different services, some similar to what BMW is doing, and maybe I'll break that down in a completely different segment. I think that you can have a greater margin of profitability if you allow for that to happen. But we'll go over that shortly.
Growth business if you can control your costs. I have to push back here on one thing. Covering you guys as long as I've covered you guys, it seems like every once in a while, 3 or 4 years, this issue comes up where there are problems getting the costs out. We are just not as efficient as we should be. Why is that with Ford? What is there in the DNA of this company that makes it so hard for you guys to get the level of efficiency that you should be getting?
Yeah. Well, I'd say that what we're, as a management team, we're moving past awareness to acceptance and now accountability. With our 3 segments, there's clear accountability.
This is just corporate speak. I don't want to hear any more. But you guys get the general gist, right? I just wanted to give you guys some insight on what you should be looking for when you're starting to see these quarterly reports come out and for these different companies to announce their results based off of what happened during the previous quarter and what their projections are for the next year. They're basically giving you a blueprint for what success looks like long term, and they're charting their course and their territory of where they think the company is going to go in order to compete in the marketplace to sell you a vehicle, right? They're investing in what it is that they have now in order to make sure, or they're using what they're making revenue off of in order to invest in what it is that they got long term, all right? So just giving you a little bit of insight. Let me read a couple more of these super chats before we get started. My girl, Kingdom Minded 1121 says, glad to see you continue to thrive and rest in your Millionaire Morning Show. Talk Yo Talk. I love this show. Listen, of all the things that I love being on the internet about, this is the platform that I love the most. Thank you, Kingdom Minded. I love you. L.A. Wilkes, Thin Black Lion, says, stopping by to say, what up? What up, though, L.A. Wilkes? I appreciate you for the fireball, my friend. Let's continue. I've been struggling with what I want to talk about next, all right? But I think I'm going to go over here. I seen the first 2 minutes of this video, and it basically breaks down what his thoughts were as he approaches 30. He's about to be 29 years old, and he said that basically he thinks that he wasted his 20s, all right? So I wanted to react to this video because it is starting to pop up on my timeline over and over and over again, and I'm almost thinking that it's divine that I talk about this. But he talks about what he wished he knew in his 20s, all right? So I want to go over this, and then I want to give you guys some insight, because it's one thing to look at it from the perspective of a person that's turning 29 and looking in hindsight over the last 9 years, and another to be a person that's 40, such as myself, to then say that, I'm not really sure that you know enough to even make this assessment of what it is that's going to come after that, right? And so I want to share this. Shout out to my girl Lucky. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat. I appreciate you guys. Make sure you hit a like for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications. If you have not already, look at the last webinar that I just dropped a couple days ago inside of the Patreon. You guys will absolutely love it. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video, and then I'll stop it as I see when necessary in order to break down different things that I think that he's either gotten right or he's gotten wrong, and then to add a little bit more context into it from a person that looks at everything from a business perspective.
I'm about to turn 29 years old, so I still have 1 year in my 20s. And in a way, I can say that I literally wasted my time and opportunities. I feel like there's so much pressure from the society and the parents and all the environment about being adults and matched with their expectations. And even from ourselves, because, we want these beautiful romances and high-paying jobs and, making your dream come true. But the truth is, we're diving into this adulthood while we're still a bunch of kids. And yeah, for sure, like, we have some, cool parties and meeting new people, and then maybe, like, you fall in love with someone beautiful in a different countries and some cool experience like that. But the truth is, all these cool experience comes with anxiety and comparing yourself to other people, and especially all these people on the social media, and they've got the life that you want, and even they're younger than you. So this video is about 5 things I wish I knew a little bit before in my 20s. And just to make sure, it doesn't matter, even if you're not 20s or younger or older, it doesn't matter, when you realize that's the moment, everyone has a different pace, everyone has a different timing. So when you start facing, that's the moment, that's the present moment that you have to value. With that said, let's dive in. Number 1, your 20 is an adventure. When we're in 20s or when you're about to be 20, you have so much expectation of success, what your life should like, and then you're so ready to make your dream come true and then make a massive change in your life. And let me guess, you probably had this expectation of like how your life should look like. It's because we are told to have this expectation, you should get married, you should get a nice job, and then you should go to college. And also you find someone like icon or somebody who gives you motivation to go after your dreams, to chase your dreams and accomplish your goals. These people seems like so free and then traveling around the world and have so much money and then like enjoying life the fullest. So along the way, we bump into this gap between the current reality and...
So let me stop there, right? He said your 20s is an adventure. I agree, but I think that it's something that's missing, right? The smart people that make, and maybe I'll do a 30s tomorrow and then a 40s next week or something like that. I think that the smartest people and the people that make the best decisions in their 20s understand that the adventure is just a process, okay? I was willing to sacrifice my 20s to do what I wanted to do for the rest of my 30s to do what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, right? Most people use the adventure word and they substitute that for fuck up, right? For women, they pass out on the guy, they pass the guy that they should have married because they wanted to have fun and slut it out. For men, we pass up on a girl that we probably should have married because we wanted to be a playboy and have some fun, right? When we talk about finances, a lot of us adopt a lot of debt and we don't truly embrace the idea of compound interest. For the nerd, I think that the nerd is probably in the best place possible from a financial perspective, but from a social perspective, he finds himself between a rock and a hard place in his 30s and the 40s because he wants to get married and he's always sought companionship, but he sacrificed that in order to make himself greater in his 20s. I think that the healthy balance is similar to what he was saying, but not so similar, to divest yourself from what the standards of society is, because the minute that you start following the herd, that's when you're going to find yourself between or in a very, very bad space, okay? What I would advise is to sacrifice, have fun, but don't feel as though you have to meet the expectations of everybody else in order to have fun in your 20s, but to sacrifice so that you can live the rest of your life the way you want to. If you make the sacrifice and you go to college and you take care of business and you decide that you don't want to get that big car in order to impress people that you're not even going to see in the next 5 years, but instead drive that beater and go to school and don't go to, the big college, but instead to go party, but instead to go to the community colleges in order to save money and all of that other type of stuff, right? You don't have to spend your 30s trying to pay off that student loan debt. You don't. You don't have to start spending your 30s trying to figure out what you want to do, because contrary to popular belief, most guys don't even start to get themselves together until they get into their 30s. Let me see what else he got to say.
And ideal reality. Okay, so I'm curious. Let me ask you this. Would you rather be realistic, or would you rather dream big? Let me know in the comment. And in my opinion, and what I've learned through my experience about this topic is that we are told to stay realistic, even though when we are kids, we dream big, we dream whatever we want. But then along the way, along the journey of being adult and maturing, we learn that we should stay realistic because of the other people's opinions. And some people call you crazy, some people laugh at you, some people, make a joke about your dreams and, start to face this failure and some, other things that hit you in the face. And our ambitions and dreams become smaller and smaller. And that's because we start to care about what other people think about us. But the truth is, people will say shit anyway. And I think it's so ironic, the fact that the people love their opinions, people are in love and people believe their opinions, yet they don't believe in themselves because it makes them feel better, not too scared. So they'll say whatever they want to say regardless of what you're doing, even if you're doing something great or, contributing other people's happiness, helping people. It doesn't matter. People will say shit anyway. So it is absolutely better to do it anyway. And there's a quote from the Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism from China, a journey of 1,000 miles, beginning with a single step. We tend to...
He's right. Like, it doesn't matter. I think what people don't understand is that it doesn't matter whether you're doing a right thing or you're doing a wrong thing. You're always going to have critics. You're always going to have people that don't agree with you. You're going to have people that look at you and say, you should have did this or you should have did that. They're going to go off on you. They're going to say, you should be partying with us. I can't believe what you're doing. Or they're going to say, listen, if you did go party, you're going to have people like me that's kicking your ass and saying that, listen, you should be able to make the sacrifice and don't go out. You're going to have to be able to filter through the noise to hear the people that actually got your best interests at heart. Because everybody needs a mentor, right? Everybody needs a person that can guide them, give them insight, information, in a sense, a father, right? Or a father figure, or a person that can give you the game on how it is that you can steer your life in a different direction, because you don't know what you don't know, which is one of the reasons why fathers are so important being in a household as you grow up and before you become an adult, right? But you're going to run into people that have so much to say. And I think that the people that are able to silence that noise and then still make the decision that's in their best interest, or stand up for themselves and say, no, I don't want to do what the overwhelming majority of people is doing, because if that was the case, then everybody wouldn't be in debt and asking Biden for forgiveness for their student loans. No, I don't necessarily feel like I have to go on that college campus and incur a bunch of debt in order to get a basket weaving degree. No, I need to make the decision to actually rock out with the person that's building with me instead of being for the streets. Then I think that you'll start to get better results. But he's right about that.
Underestimate what we can do with that single step. But then we tend to overestimate that imagination without action. And this is because most of the time we are filled with ego and self-consciousness. Your ego and self-consciousness will be the biggest enemy. It's not because your family is rich enough. It's not because you don't have a cool friends. It's not because you are living in a poor country.
Self-consciousness.
It always has been our ego and self-consciousness. If you don't take your time and the courage to face it, it will linger in your life. But while your emotions and your mind and everything are controlled and dominated by your ego and self-consciousness, then you won't be able to have a relationship. You have to be aligned with it in order to build a healthy relationship by becoming familiar with it. But often...
And this is where me and him differ, right? Because I don't think it's your ego and the self-consciousness that's going to be one of the biggest factors. I think it's who you spend your time with and who you're influenced by. You said ego and self-consciousness and you need to be one with it. I think is influence and impact, and who you spend your time with is going to be one of the biggest factors of whether you go down path A or you go down path B in your 20s. I'm being absolutely honest. Any girl that you meet, it doesn't matter who it is that she is or who it is that she projects herself to be in front of you. If you look at her friends, you can get a better sense of who she is and if she's actually for the streets, if she's a good person, if she's going in the right direction, so on and so forth. It's all based off of who you spend your time with because everybody is going to rub off on everybody. She's going to rub off on them. They're going to rub off on her. But everybody is in their 20s are influenced and pushed in a direction by something or someone. It's one of the reasons why people always say, well, listen, I want to know if she got a good family or if she got a father figure in her life. It don't necessarily mean that you're not going to run into a chick that's not going to ruin your life. But I think that who you're influenced by and who you spend the majority of your time around, which is one of the reasons why I'm an advocate against sending your daughter off to school by herself in a space that you can't participate in her life in, is probably going to be one of the biggest mistakes that you make as a father ever in history. But I think that who you spend your time around and who you influence by has a bigger impact on your life than self-consciousness and ego. I think it's necessary to have ego. I think it's necessary to be conscious about who you are. I think that ego can be a good thing, especially if you're a man, because it allows for you to actually be a conqueror and not to be conquered. So I don't know. I look at it a little bit differently.
Sometimes we perceive them as something bad or unwanted.
Shout out to
aspect
David.
about ourselves. But let me remind you something. We're imperfect, and that's actually the rule of the true beauty, and the discipline of it is to accept without resistance. On the way to 20s, when we're teenagers especially, we encounter a lot of aspects and temptations that shape our perception and ideas. So we create this image of perfection and try to match with it, based on what society says or based on what your parents says. And maybe looking at, your friends and Instagram and everything. We end up hurting ourselves because when we don't match with their expectation or we don't match with this image of perfection, we start to think that, okay, we're not good enough, we start to hurt ourselves.
Says the guy with the long flowing hair. Listen, there's nothing wrong with striving for perfection, right? And you also gonna have to understand that the goalposts are going to continue to be moved based off of your experience and based off of what you think perfection is. And I even often say to people, and I tell them all the time, I say, listen, even your purpose is going to change because your purpose is defined by the work, right? It's defined by where you are in your life. What you thought your purpose was in your teens and your 20s is going to be much different than your 30s and your 40s because what you're trying to do and how you're trying to impact and leave a mark on this earth is going to be based off of where you are in your current circumstances in life, right? And so I think that it's okay to strive for perfection. I think that it's okay to not always lean into the idea. And I hate it when people say stuff like, well, ain't nobody perfect or I'm not perfect. All that is an excuse as to why you're not doing what you're supposed to do or why you can't meet the expectation or why you're not striving to be a better version of yourself. If you don't have that goal in front of you, if you don't have that carrot in front of you, I tell people all the time, especially even on coaching calls, I force them to define what a perfect life looks like for them at that particular time. Because if you don't have anything that you're striving for, when I hear somebody saying, I'm reading Super Chat shortly, when I hear people say stuff like, I say, well, okay, well, what are you looking to get out of these calls? Or, what is it that you want out of life? And they say, I just want to be successful, or I want to just be financially free. Well, what the hell is that? What does that look like? Being able to do what I want to do. Okay, well, I want to be a millionaire. Okay, it's a big difference between being a millionaire that is net worth of $2 million and that has a net worth of $200 million or $20 million. It's a big difference. What does this look like? What am I pushing you towards? How can we reverse engineer this to where I can break it out in milestones so that we can then document and we can trend towards success? But if you don't have a North Star, if you don't have anything that you're working towards, then you literally just existing, and then you're going to find yourself in your 40s and your 50s talking about, Anton, you know what? I thought I was going to be an African booty scratcher, or I thought I was going to be a basket weaver, but I'm not perfect. You know what you are. You know exactly who you are, and you know where your shortcomings are, I don't want to hear that victim Olympian talk. I'm reading Super Chat shortly. Thank y'all for continuing to hold me down.
Stupid image is actually created for someone else's, like to be someone who be liked or too much with parents' expectations and everything. It's not for ourselves, it's actually made for someone else. The real importance of being in 20s is learning how to love yourself and take care of yourself. We often get drawn into this judgment and pressures by school, parents, and your boss and everything, and which transfer it to us, these pains and these struggles. And it seems like,
I have a very low tolerance for this whole self-love. You learn learn to love yourself. Listen, maybe I'm wrong, but I have a low tolerance for this, love who you are, kumbaya, let's get a whole bunch of therapy. It doesn't really matter what your parents told you growing up and all of this other type of stuff. Now he's showing me his age. He's showing me that he's let me hear some more what he got to say before I get my thoughts.
like as if we are supposed to deal with someone else's shit. And then we don't learn how to love ourselves, we don't learn how to take care of yourself, but instead we learn it is selfish to take your time and just spend it for yourself, or it is sad to be alone and to enjoy your solitude. And every single person in this world will bump into the wall of this self-realization, but it is never too late to start love yourself and to start take care of yourself, regardless what other people say.
Ain't that what Tia Mowry said that she was gonna do? Ain't that why Tia Mowry said that she was getting out of her marriage? Because she needed she realized that self-love was the thing that she needed to do. There's a couple of caveats associated with this also. One of them, for example, is kids. I always tell people that be selfish before you can be selfless. That's the caveat, right? And the reason I say that is because you can't help anybody until you help yourself first. Now, that's a much different narrative than self-love, right? Because I think that love is sacrifice. Love is growth. Love is caring for somebody else. Love is making a sacrifice, understanding the, now so that you can do what you want to do for the rest of your life. The self-love narrative gives somebody an excuse to not do what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. Instead, they say, you know what? I just need to love myself, or I'm about to go on this trip because I needed this. I needed this self-care moment. No, you need to take your bitch ass to work so that, your landlord not kicking you out and then you asking Biden for forgiveness for your student loans because you didn't do what you were supposed to do in the first place. That's not self-love. That's self-hate.
Says or what society says. But the one thing though, never rush into the result of what you want or the conclusion of everything, because your 20s is the investment. You might think that you have to make it right now, you have to make it when you're 20s, right? But hell no. Some people have what you want, but many other people want what you have. Yeah, of course, other people's success caught my eye too, but the truth is we're different. Everyone is different, so you can't go through other people's path. And that's why you have to invest your time, money, and your energy onto something really matters to you or your future self. And here's the most important thing that I should have invested way earlier in my 20s. Communication skills, side hustles, dating life. Communication skills will definitely help you to get what you want and
I like
to
that.
connect with others in terms of making friends.
Now we on the same page. Those last points I wasn't feeling it, but now we on the same page for a minute. Let me hear a little bit more. So I was just about to cut it off.
And doing a business. The side hustle will reduce the stress from financial aspect in your life. If you have a little bit of money coming in and out, you can also feel a little bit more stress-free and also think stress-free. Because there's way too many people are struggling and feeling so stressed just because.
I think everybody should have a side hustle, honestly. Whether you're a woman, a man, I think that everybody should have a side hustle, a second job, or something like that. I don't know where we got this whole 40-hour work week thing from. I think it's corny. I'm not feeling it. I know that there's this whole movement towards a 4-day work week, working 32 hours a week and still getting the same amount of work done. That's bullshit. Absolutely bullshit. I think that everybody should have some extra income, a side hustle, Then you want to join the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat for you to figure out exactly what you're supposed to do with that money so that you don't fumble it and you're not increasing your lifestyle so that you're still having the same money problems and stress that you had before you got your side hustle. But I do think that everybody should have a side hustle. I'm reading Super Chat shortly. Thank you guys for holding me down.
Because of the financial reason. And then when it comes to the dating life, don't invest your emotions way too early stage of the, getting to know each other. Because if you think about it, if you have a best friend or if you have a family, you guys know each other for such a long time. But when it comes to the dating, we tend to invest emotions way too early, or like your actions, you're giving way too much. So step back from all the result that you attach to it and detach yourself from the result and an outcome and the people and ideas and have a flat perspective. But you have to have a faith and then lit the fire within you of enthusiasm and desire and turn that
All right, I get it. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Let me see what y'all talking about inside of the chat. David Mosby says, crazy. I wish I would have ran across Anton, the Godfather, Mr. Samuels, and Russell Taylor, my Godfather, plus the lead attorney, and O'Shea Duke Jackson. Shout out to you for the 5-ball. I appreciate you for holding me down, big dog. Oh my God, with the 70 ball. Yard boy Timmy says, proud bag chaser in the building as a 19-year-old aspiring cybersecurity professional. I'm finding it difficult to convince myself to stay in the United States and complete the next 3 years of my computer science degree as opposed to taking a more efficient path. Listen, yard boy Timmy. Shout out to my Canadian brethren. You're 19, fam. You're 19. Listen to me. If I've never told you anything, if you've never really been influenced by anything that I said, listen to me now. You 19, fam. Don't take no shortcuts. No shortcuts. It took you 19 years to become a 19-year-old. It's going to take you 22 years to become a 22-year-old. It's going to take you 25 years to become a 25-year-old. Stop trying to skip steps. Stop trying to take a more efficient path. You're 19. You're supposed to be broke. You're supposed to be destitute. You're supposed to be, a little bit more open to the possibilities of what can be, and take your time, family. I know 40-year-olds that's trying to do the same thing, taking a more efficient path, and they've been trying to do the more efficient path for their entire life. Hear me out, family. You 19. Don't rush the process. Focus on the results. The process of going through it is what we would call being human. Let me give you a little bit of insight of how I see things, right? And why you need to look at it a little bit differently, Timmy. And thank you for the super chat. But I'm going to spend a little bit more time on what it is that you're talking about, all right? Is there a more efficient way to become a lawyer? Is it a more efficient way for you to skip steps in order to become a doctor? You need to put in your 10,000 hours, meaning that you need to become a master of whatever it is that you're trying to become, because right now you're trying to chase the money and you're trying to chase the success and you're trying to skip steps. The surest way to find yourself in a bad space or not as great as you could have been is trying to skip steps. From a spiritual perspective, and I could be wrong, but I'm just going to give you my view of how it is that I see life. From a spiritual perspective, I don't believe in choice. I believe in fate, right? So even me having this conversation with you right now, I believe this is exactly what I was going to say before the formation of this earth, because even in the word, right, in the word of God, it says that we were predestined to be who we are and us to be here at this specific moment in time, even before the formation of the earth. Now, if that be true, then how could there ever be choice if I truly believe what I'm reading, right? And I believe the whole word. I don't believe half of it. I read the whole thing all the time. And I ran across this scripture the other day, and it's predestination before the formation of the earth. Now, with all of the different billions and trillions and quadrillions of possibilities, if I'm predestined to be here, then how much of a choice did I really have based off of me existing in this exact moment at this time, telling you whatever it is that you need to know in order to continue down this path, right? I believe in the perception of choice, meaning that we're all just little pieces on a chessboard, and our feelings about what it is that we do on a daily basis allows for us to be human. That's the human side of us, right? We want to feel in control. We want to believe that we're doing something different. We want to believe that we're making a choice. We want to believe that we're better than everybody else. We want to believe that you did wrong and I did right and ha, 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 right? But if it's the perception of choice, if I'm right, not saying that I am, because maybe my interpretation of the word is wrong. I'm open to the possibility that I'm wrong. But if we were predestined to be here before the formation of the earth, and if it's really fate versus choice, right? And if the only thing that makes us human is the perception of choice, which gives us this whole view towards the world where we're actually making decisions on our own, which makes it more entertaining, right? If you go into a situation and you know what the outcome is already going to be, do you have the same feelings, impact, perception of a human being as you would have if you actually thinking that you're controlling it? Have you ever given your little brother or your sister the control, and then they thought that they was playing the video game, but you was really the one that was playing it, and they think that they doing it? They having a ball until they realize that the cord is not even connected and they're not even controlling the person. And then they become less interested in it. So I believe that the perception of choice is actually which allows for us to be human. Now, how do I tie this into your question as far as skipping steps, right? My point is that stop worrying about the process. You need to enjoy the journey. If you're supposed to be a cybersecurity professional, in which we always gonna have that human element of us, and that we're enjoying life, we're making choices, because we forget about this predestination thing and stuff anyway, right? But my point is that if you're already going to be the cybersecurity professional, then enjoy the process, do the best that you can, embrace the human aspect of it, and know that the ups and downs is a part of you just being a human being. You feeling the way that you feel right now is exactly what makes you human. It's okay. But stop trying to skip steps and allow for yourself to truly enjoy the process, because the results is for everybody else. The process is for you. That's what makes you human. Hopefully you caught what I was trying to communicate over to you. I don't know. I'm a C student. Sometimes I don't get my point across as much as I would hope that I do. But hopefully I'm adding some value into your life. If you need to get in touch with me, email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com. Or maybe you was already supposed to email me because that was just predestined to happen. I don't know. Shout out to you for the 70 ball, my Canadian brethren. You also says you're an advocate for college, but I genuinely believe I can start acquiring the requisite skill sets and knowledge in a more efficient manner. Definitely got to book a coaching call to get more your insight on this. Send me an email and we'll kick it. Shout out to you, my friend. Also, Marvin McKenzie says, just paying my tithes, rise and grind. Shout out to you, Marvin McKenzie. I appreciate the 10 ball. Brock says, I can't tell you enough how much you are appreciated by me, at least. The insight you give in a Patreon and on the morning show is invaluable. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you, Brock. You always hold me down. Jay says, do you do any time management calls for someone needs to juggle more things than the average person to get ahead? I do. Email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com. I was just really going over this with somebody else the other day. Shout out to you. But yeah, send me an email and we can go over it. And I can do a video inside of the Patreon on it too. Plato says, what funds or stocks are you buying? I am not buying anything right now. I'm just reinvesting. Right now, I'm dollar cost averaging. So I have a budget that I allocate towards my portfolio. I have a collection of different things that I've already invested in. I just continue to reaffirm my position in them. One of them being Netflix, another one being Meta, and then I got a few others also. But I got a video inside of the Patreon of the 8 things that I look for when I'm looking to fortify my position or invest in a particular company. So check that out. Cardell Snorton says, what's up? Time turned 23 this month, graduating from Oakland University. Shout out to my Grizzlies. Studying management information systems, struggling to decide which field to join, data analytics or cybersecurity. Let me beat this into your head again. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity. That's your answer. Shout out to my family that's graduating from Oakland University, going to cybersecurity, not data analytics. Cybersecurity, 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 all right? That's what I would advise you go in. So you still got to make your own informed decision, but that's what I advise, right? I had one more thing that I wanted to go over, but I'm going to save that for tomorrow because I think that it will be better for us to talk about it tomorrow because it doesn't tie into any of the things that I was talking about today. Today was information heavy. Today we talked about money. We talked about the Fed rate hike. We talked about what you should do in your 20s, which career paths you should go down. We broke down everything from a Ford Motor Company perspective, how it is that they segment different businesses in order to justify investing in one part of the business, but making money on the other side in order to make sure that the companies still grow into the future, well into the future. So we talked about a lot of different things, all right? But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you joined the Patreon. Inside of the Patreon this afternoon, I am dropping the location of our next meetup. So you might want to tap into that. Make sure you watch the webinar. Make sure you tap into the Discord. The link to the Discord is in any of the description of the most recent videos inside of the Patreon. I love you guys. I appreciate you. If you just now tuning in, I see you. Mike's here, says I missed the whole show. What up, family? Make sure you restream this. But I need y'all to do me one more favor before we get up out of here, because this is very, very important. Make sure you share this with your family and friends. We don't want to be successful by ourselves. I love you. I appreciate you. I think that you guys are absolutely, positively awesome. And we're going to continue to do the work. Shout out to all of the new bag chasers. Shout out to all of the new Patreon members. You guys are absolutely awesome. I'm going to talk to you later. Y'all want to have a debate on data analytics versus cybersecurity? I'm going to talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace.